Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we've got ourselves a head coach. The Giants have hired Brian Daboll as their next head coach, and it looks like Ken Dorsey's coming as offensive coordinator, which we're all going to talk about. Justin, I'm pumped. I am very pumped. I was expecting Brian Daboll as the head coach, so the Brian Daboll news was like, okay, let's get into action and work. But then the Ken Dorsey stuff dropped with it. Like, it looks like Dorsey's coming. That took me from I'm happy to I'm just pumped. Like, I'm very excited about the direction of the New York Giants right now. I'm very excited that Joe Schoen is the GM, and Joe Schoen brought Brian Daboll with him, and I'm just so happy for this New York Giants franchise right now. I really hope this doesn't get look back in this 2-3 years now, but I'm really excited, and I told myself I wasn't going to get excited.
I'm pumped. Really am pumped, and I do have kind of like the really big fan brain on fan heart right now, where I really am pumped for this. Go back to Dave Gettleman, right? Dave Gettleman, Pat Shurmur is hired. Unclear expectations / irrational expectations about what this team should achieve, and then by the time the end of 2019 came around and Daniel Jones actually showed some promise, as you've pointed out time and time again, Dave Gettleman backstabbed Pat Shurmur, convinced John Mara to not fire Dave Gettleman, but that Pat Shurmur was the problem and that he could still fix this. And then Joe Judge was hired off-cycle, which that's always kind of a bad recipe, and then even include the ingredient that is Jason Garrett and John Mara forcing Jason Garrett on Joe Judge, not just in the year 2020, but also in the year 2021. Now, Joe Schoen talks about how he wants GM, head coach, and OC. We'll throw him in there, and we'll include Ken Dorsey in that for now until the news changes, but it kind of does look like Dorsey will be the offense coordinator. GM, head coach, offensive coordinator, 3 vital parts of a football team. All of those guys sharing a similar vision. Bobby Skinner, we got it. We got it. And they're all outsiders, and they've all had success.
Yeah, man, I'm very happy with where we're going. We got guys who have learned from others, learned from experience, and we did a pretty good analysis of Brian Daboll. We were ready for this, but even after the hirings, we learned some stuff about how he grew from his time as an offensive coordinator in the early 2009 to 2012 with the Browns, Chiefs, and Dolphins. So we're gonna break it all down. We're gonna talk about his scheme, the Erhardt Perkins scheme, zone versus gap in the run, RPO and play action, that type of stuff. How he developed the QB. We're talking about Ken Dorsey. Talk about Joe Schoen. But before we get all to that, we're not going to ask for this literally until the day of the draft. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. And it's the easiest thing you can do to support us on Apple. And I think you can press 5 stars on Spotify now too. But we can, more so Apple. Find someone that has an iPhone if you don't have an iPhone and leave us a 5-star rating and review. And it's easy. I mean, look, Justin, you called me. What did I say? I was literally 10 minutes away from an Orlando Magic basketball game. Was gonna go to the basketball game, enjoy my Friday night, was expecting the news Saturday morning, canceled the tickets. Canceled the freaking tickets. So DraftKings is trying to keep me away from Orlando Magic games. The Giants keep me from Orlando Magic games. And now I'm recording this in my girl's house. And we have signs up that says, "Dream even when you are awake."
Wow.
I'm not a motivational quote guy, but I got motivational quotes for this podcast. So if
we don't need to dream anymore because we got it. We're here. We got Joe Schoen. We got Brian Daboll.
If I can skip an Orlando Magic game, which is of the utmost importance versus the Detroit Pistons and Cade Cunningham, you can leave a 5-star rating review. And listen, sometimes the smallest things take the most room in your heart. And Talking Giants should keep the most room in your heart. That's another quote from the wall.
That was 2 inspirational quotes back to back.
Smile, because it's contagious.
Contagious? Literally the episode after
derangement.
You dissed Joe Schoen's 2 inspirational quotes in this press conference, so you're just a hypocrite and a bad guy. We're also 600 ratings. We're 600 ratings behind our bosses, John Boy and Jake. And not gonna lie,
we want to whip their ass.
That would be a really good flex if we pass them in 5-star ratings on the Apple Podcast app. All right, anyway, that's that. Bobby Skinner, what do you want to move on to next?
So we can do the scheme stuff. We can talk about him growing as a person and as a coach. Do you want to do the scheme stuff just because not everyone else is going to do scheme stuff, or what?
You know what? we did talk a little bit of scheme when we previewed Brian Daboll, but what we didn't really talk about, and we just like said, hey, he grew because the results got better. I do want to talk about substantially how he grew as a coach, as a person, whatever word you want to use to describe Brian Daboll, how he grew, because that was the biggest hesitation, trepidation that people have about Brian Daboll. And I think what we're going to try and do is give you a little bit more optimism if that is, like, if you're maybe not thrilled with this and you wanted like a Brian Flores, let's say.
Okay, so what are we doing first? Let's do the scheme stuff because it's quick, and then we can have more. The other stuff's more conversational.
All right.
Stuff.
Well, we teased it. There's a lot of stuff in relation to how he's grown over the years. So stay tuned for that.
Okay. Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff. So I talked with Anthony, who works for Cover One, covers the Bills, and I've watched the Bills. I've watched a little bit of film. I mean, one is the development of Josh Allen, which we'll talk about more so in a second. But it's concept based. So what does that mean? It means you can do multiple formations. And you can run, like, flood is a concept that really works really well. It's like, okay, it doesn't matter, what personnel you're in. You can use that concept. It doesn't matter, like, what type of players you have. It uses those concepts. It attacks zones. It attacks safeties deep. It opens up space if the teams are going to stop you deep. If teams are going to blitz you and play man coverage, it opens up stuff for big plays down the field. Like, it's just a system that breeds attacking the ball from high to low, which we can talk about Daniel Jones later, but that should be... If you're those should be good QB strengths, is attacking from high to low. We don't want an Alex Smith type player here, or Chad Pennington after the injury type player. So it's those. So it breeds the hurry up offense where it's like, hey, we're calling a concept where we are in this formation, bam, 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 get it, and it's just simple stuff for a quarterback. It's simple stuff for a quarterback to grow on, and then obviously you add all types of different stuff to it. And Brian Daboll has done that. In the run game, it's very diverse. He runs a mix of zone and gap. We talked with Anthony. They went once the offensive line got more settled with the Buffalo this season, they doubled their gap runs when they got offensive line got settled. I know you have some stuff on RPO versus play action, but basically, long story short, it is an offense that attacks downfield from high to low, and it has all types of stuff mixed in, but it's not based on timing and pre-snap. It's a very much post-snap offense, and I think that's what breeds the best type of quarterback play. I feel like that's what breeds the best type of football play, not just in the regular season, but more so in the postseason, Justin.
Yeah, and Daboll was a guy when he started off with Buffalo, a very high run rate, including on first down, which usually first down is the down where you want to be aggressive and getting ahead on early downs, so you're avoiding third down situations altogether, or you're making yourself get into third and short situations. And Buffalo has been one of the offenses the last couple of years that have been best in early down efficiency, and I feel like it's the key in football. It's the key for the Giants, where you don't want to get into these third and long situations where the offensive line is put under more pressure. Daniel Jones is put under more pressure, physically and metaphorically, where you got to make a big throw, and then physically you're being put on more pressure on because defenses are blitzing you, right? And the whole idea of creating explosive plays is that maybe defenses can respect you a little bit. Maybe they're putting more guys back in coverage versus just trusting that a team could play man coverage, that they could play cover one, they could put another guy in the box. The Giants have had a problem with that the last couple of years too. There's been too many guys in the box, so you can't run the ball. They can't produce an explosive play at a good rate, where since 2019, even before really the explosion of Josh Allen, 2019, the Bills had the 6th ranked offense in terms of explosive plays. 2020 it was 7th, and this year it was 12th. When teams actually are able to respect your ability to create that deep play, Josh Allen had to take some more underneath stuff this year. So that's the idea. Diverse, and the offense has grown. The offense has evolved even from Brian Daboll's time in Buffalo, taking the feedback from the players, learning what kind of quarterback Josh Allen is, seeing what his strengths are and what his weaknesses are, and seeing that, hey, this dude has this crazy arm, so we are going to run these crossing routes. We are going to have these high to low reads, and the priority is going to be to push the ball down the field while also recognizing that we could check the ball down, get yards after the catch, et cetera, et cetera.
And I want to add to your point about running the ball. Like, he's situationally aware of running the ball. Like, he's not going to run the ball every 1st and 10. When it's 2nd and long, like, he's very, like, he's not, there's going to be times when they hand the ball off, but, like, he doesn't want to run the ball on 2nd and long. After that I was listening to the press conference after that Jags game where the offense played really bad. I'm like, how come you didn't run the ball more? He's like, well, we had a lot of second and longs, and we don't want to run the ball. We want to believe in our process on those type of things. But he's also adjusted as teams have adjusted to the Josh Allen Buffalo Bills, where 2020 Josh Allen and the Bills took the league by storm. No one expected them to do what they did. And so, passing, like they were third in passing yards per game, but they were 20th in rushing yards. Well, guess what? Teams are going to adjust. They're going to play more two high safety looks versus Josh Allen. What did? They started running the ball more. They were the number 6 rushing team in the NFL in 2021. So not only is it like first down, second down, third down, situationally aware, but it's like he's not like the Chiefs where it's like they're just going to pass no matter what, and they're not patient enough. Like the Chiefs are flat out not patient enough to stick to the run when they should. And we saw that even in the Giants game with the Chiefs. They had that one drive where they ran the ball. They didn't stay patient with it, and that's why they had like only 20 points, which is a low amount for them. With Brian Daboll, like, yeah, they still want to pass the ball, but if they're going to give you the run, he's going to take it. And I know Josh Allen affects that because he does run the ball a lot. But it's just like he takes what's in front of him. So it's not just, oh, this is what we do. This is what we do. We'll adjust to the defense. And I talked with Anthony again, who did the film stuff, and he adjusts week to week and in game.
Mm-hmm. And with running the ball, I saw a criticism of some people saying, well, Brian Daboll doesn't really have a good rushing scheme, doesn't have a really good idea on how to run with the running backs. And I'd have to disagree because it is based on efficiency. It's not based on volume. And there are metrics that look at just looking at running back carries and how efficient and how well a team does by just looking at running back carries and removing those quarterback carries. The Bills are still a top 10 offense when you look at rushing efficiency from this year, just including those running back carries. So I'm pumped. Again, pumped. The fact that offense, it's an offensive league, Bobby Skinner, and I know that's such an overused line, blah, 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 blah. It's an offensive league, and I think you just look at the way the league is going and the league is trending and what was available for us just in general with these head coaching candidates this offseason. Feel a lot better getting an offensive guy in here and trusting that there can be a defensive coordinator out there, pick your pick at this point, especially Wink Martindale becoming available. That's a whole wild card in there, along with Vic Fangio if he doesn't take a head coaching job, Patrick Graham if he doesn't take a head coaching job. But even if none of those guys pan out for the Giants, I still feel confident that we can get a defense coordinator in here that can work. Maybe not perfect, but it can work. But what you need 100% to work is the offense in the NFL. That is what we need to work, and that is what this hire means. Get the offense right in a league that is predicated around offense.
And listen, great defensive coordinators take longer to be hired as head coaches than great offensive coordinators, So it's just part of like, hey, I'd rather have, like if you're telling me this coach is going to have the same exact success offense versus defense, I'm picking the offensive guy 10 times out of 10 because I know that guy's staying. Where Matt Eberflus has been a really good DC for a long time. He's been getting head coach interviews for the last 5 years. Just got one. Vic Fangio took forever to get one. Leslie Frazier, like his defense has been just as, if not maybe even more impressive than Brian Daboll. But like he hasn't gotten that second turn yet. Even Brian Flores. Like if there was an equivalent offensive like thing, like hey, listen, his defenses weren't great, but he won games with a bad roster. Brian Flores would be hired right now. Maybe he still does end up going somewhere. The Saints or wherever. But again, like is the offense more important? So now we're gonna talk about his growth from earlier in his career to now.
I have something that can mix growth and scheme together.
The QB, Josh Allen, right?
Well, no, not necessarily. It has to do with.
I'm all ramped up right now.
It has to do with Earhart Perkins and utilizing a bunch of different freaking formations. So, one of the things about growth is Daboll really considering the input and value from some of his players. One of them being Derek Anderson, former Cleveland Browns quarterback. Then when he came to the Buffalo Bills, either circa, I think it was 2018, when he came to the Bills, he gave some input on the offense. But also, when Cole Beasley came to Buffalo, he suggested a few option route designs that he liked during his time at SMU. The Mustang set of plays has now become a pivotal part of the Bills' offense approach, and that type of interaction was starkly different from the type of back and forth that might have happened with the Chiefs when Daboll was the offense coordinator with the Chiefs. Back then, Dabes was a little bit more reserved in himself. He didn't have that creative swagger that I'm talking about. He didn't have that in Kansas City, and it's kind of what makes his wheels turn now in Buffalo. So include, what I think. I mean, Cole Beasley was at SMU a while ago, but I was just watching some. There's a tight end that's going to the Senior Bowl that's at SMU, and they run like this kind of spread offense where their tight end never lined up and never put his hand in the dirt. They run everything wide. Everything is wide. Everything's kind of out towards the sidelines. And what you're seeing with this Earhart Perkins and what Daboll has done is he's really widened and broadened his horizons in terms of his personnel grouping frequency. He's going to use a bunch of different combos of 11 personnel. He's going to put guys out wide. He's going to put guys in certain spots. He's going to move guys around the line of scrimmage, pre-snap motion and motion at the snap. So those are things that kind of stuck out to me. And he wasn't always like that. Growth. He's growing over time. He's gotten better. He is evolving himself. And that's goes to show he was a little stubborn in the past, but it's good that he's recognized that, and that is how you explain the growth over time, and it's not just Josh Allen.
And so I want to talk about Josh Allen, and I think what it can lead to is the Derek Anderson quote, and I'll read it word for word. When he got there to Buffalo, there wasn't much time to spare. After losing Allen to a sprained elbow in early October, the Bills brought Anderson aboard and had barely a week to get him ready to step in as a starter. To help jumpstart the process, Anderson suggested a few tweaks to Buffalo's offense that would incorporate some formations and concepts he'd used throughout his career. Much to his surprise, Daboll was receptive to nearly every suggestion that Anderson put forth. He kind of just let me talk to the guys and kind of put my case on the table, and everybody kind of agreed. Anderson said, whereas I think I had that happen early in his career, he would not have been as open to the idea. Says Anderson was the quarterback with Mangini in 2009, a former 6th-round pick, blah, blah, blah. It was like, hey, can we just do... talking about his time with him in Cleveland, it was like, hey, can we just do this kind of build this offense backwards that was very successful for us previously, Anderson said. He kind of wanted to do his own thing. Like, hey, that's not how I see it. That's not how I see us going. So being more receptive, and with Josh Allen, which I think is the biggest notch on his belt. Because having Josh Allen obviously helps, but let's not forget what Josh Allen was. He was horrible his rookie season. His second year was better, but, they weren't a very good offense, but he grew. And then obviously year 3 is when he totally took off. And that's what I love, is whether I do think he'll get the most out of Daniel Jones. I really do. But I'm almost more excited for him to get their guy, if not Daniel Jones, because they're going to develop that QB through his struggles. Where if we were getting Brian Daboll in year 2 of Daniel Jones, I'd be a lot more excited for DJ. But it's year 4. We have the option decision looming. Whereas, like, whoever his guy is, maybe he totally believes in Daniel Jones and Daniel Jones is his guy, or someone in the draft, whoever, is that he's going to develop that player through their struggles. They're not going to Jason Garrett this, Joe Judge this, whereas you see the flaws, where it's like you saw the fumbles, you saw, a minor interception problem for a rookie, more so the fumbles, and like, okay, we got to build this offense all based around timing and pre-snap reads because we don't want him thinking too much and having bad plays. No, whoever the QB is going to be able to learn through struggles. And guess what? There may be struggles, but you know what there's going to be that there wasn't in the last 2 years with Joe Judge, Jason Garrett, and Freddie Kitchens? You know what there's going to be, Justin? There's going to be big games. There's going to be big games, which we have not had offensively. The last 2 years when Daniel Jones played damn near perfect, the offense was putting up 27 points. We're going to get back to whoever the QB is. Maybe it's a rookie QB. We're going to have something similar to Shermer, I think better than Shermer, where it's like, hey, is the offense quote-unquote good? No, but versus bad teams, they can put up points, and you can grow on this when you have more personnel, because he's not going to have the Buffalo personnel right away. Yeah. So there's going to be growing pains to this offense. Doesn't mean, next year the Giants offense isn't going to be balling, but it can get back to the middle of the tier pack that it was in 2019 with Pat Shermer, Daniel Jones, a bad offensive line, a worse offensive line than what we'll have next year, a worse wide receiver group than we'll have next year, and probably, 2019 probably had a better running back room because Saquon was healthy.
Right, and also it was exciting. I mean, 2019 was an exciting year. Was that offense good? No. And I even think that, they get a little bit too much credit for being too explosive. but anything looks more explosive than what we've gotten in 2020 and 2021, where the Giants were literally bottom of the barrel, right? So I totally agree with you, and I was going to preach patience, kind of in my point that I was going to follow you. So I'm glad that you did it. But what will make the patience worth it is that I think we are going to have those games, like you said, where
Progress.
we're going to break out. It's going to be 30 points. And then the next game may not be 30 points and it may not be great. But Daboll's offense does seem like one of those systems where there's a lot going on. Anderson brought up in the in the Athletic article. That's awesome. I'm gonna get the title of that article and I'm gonna say it out loud. I'll say it out loud right now. How Brian Daboll found his voice and became one of the best coaches in football by Robert Mays from January 15th, 2021. Robert Mays
is one of my favorite writers, by the way.
Writers, and also he does a phenomenal show. He does the football show with The Athletic. And he does a phenomenal job with that. So really check out that article to see what we're talking about. But Anderson was talking about how it took him like 3 weeks to really learn all the formations and what all the formations do and what's attached to all of them. So this is a system that I think Daboll is going to have to kind of introduce slowly and bring along slowly, especially if there's a new quarterback that's added to the mix post-2022 or this year. That quarterback's going to have to be kind of brought along. But the patience is going to be worth it by hopefully we do have those games where it's like, wow, this is what we can look forward to on a more consistent basis, hopefully in the future. Whereas the patience that we were hoping for with Jason Garrett and Joe Judge was, oh, we're still waiting for that 30-point game. We were waiting for the first game, and we never even got it in 2 years.
Yeah, and that's why I wasn't patient with Jason Garrett, because like at this offense's best, with best personnel, it's not going to be one of the best offenses.
It was average. Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, guess what? Versus the Eagles in 2020, Daniel Jones, the offense, played a damn near perfect game, and we scored 27 points.
Yeah.
So that was always the issue with it. And again, developing the QB through the struggles. Whoever that QB is, whether it's Daniel Jones, whether it's Malik Willis, whether it's Kenny Pickett, whether it's Bryce Young in 2023. What year are we in? Yeah, we're in 2022. It's 2023. I'm really been screwing up the New Year thing. So just going through that. And again, like his offense, that's what happened in Buffalo, by the way. Like they're bad the first year. The second year they got a little better, but still not good. And then, bam, we got a decent offensive line. We got the wide receivers we wanted, Stephon Diggs. We got Beasley. We got a Gabe Davis that we like in the draft. Second offense. Next year, third offense. And did it different ways both times. It adjusted and adapted. And that's one thing I always look for, is a guy who's willing to adapt. Yeah,
and you were talking about Mahomes before and Andy Reid and the Chiefs not being patient. I mean, you could say that on the surface that those are similar offenses with similar quarterbacks that are just out of this world, right? Stephon Diggs, really good wide receiver. Tyreek Hill, really good wide receiver. I did not hear, besides Josh Allen having a slight turnover problem this year, I did not hear the same frustration out of Buffalo's offense and teams are figuring them out like we heard this year with the Chiefs, where they're figuring the Chiefs out. Teams are figuring the Chiefs out. Patrick Mahomes isn't patient enough, taking the check down. The explosive plays aren't there. So the same level of frustration, and at times it was like, well, are the Chiefs sinking or are they going down? Which was a crazy question looking back on it. Didn't hear the same critiques about the Buffalo Bills. And I think that's a credit to coaching and the ability to adjust.
And they did have their low moments of this season, and I think they had a defense that was better than the Chiefs to kind of save them. But like there was some low, the Jags game was a low moment for the Bills, obviously, and they had that month wasn't great for them. But it's like they adjusted. They started adding more a gap scheme, and by the end of the season, Josh Allen was balling just as much as ever, and then we saw that last playoff game. Obviously, Josh Allen's a different type of QB than the Giants have on their roster, or probably will have on their roster going forward. But it's just he's showed willingness to adjust and not taking forever. Whereas like with Jason Garrett, we were never going to adjust. We just never were.
Yeah.
And I don't think Joe Judge. You called me and talked about Joe Judge. This has to be like just a nightmare for him.
All right, so it's reported that number one, that Brian Daboll was Joe Judge's choice for OC. Like I think that's known, but then I think I might have accidentally tweeted out that Joe Judge wanted Ken Dorsey too, which we know that. I don't know if that was reported, but we know that, and we know that for a fact. So if you want to take it or leave it, we know that. We're not reporters, but we know it. What a world, man. What a cruel world. What a cruel
They might keep
world.
Graham, too.
And they might keep Graham, where Joe Judge went to John Mara, and maybe this was possibly his pitch. Give me Ken Dorsey as offense coordinator, because obviously Daboll's not going to take the lateral jump from OC to OC. So give me Ken Dorsey from, I guess, what is he, QB coach right now in Buffalo?
QB coach, passing game coordinator.
So QB coach.
Actually, no, he's the New York Giants offensive coordinator, we think.
Well, I'm talking about previously. So
I know.
Joe Judge's head coach, he probably went to Mara saying, I like this guy. I've liked these guys from Buffalo. Look at what they're doing. Let me bring him in. And then John Mara was probably like, yeah, I want to, but we just can't. I've messed everything up too much, John Mara says. What a cruel world. And now all of these guys are in the building.
I think he wanted Joe Shane too. I think they were trying to bring. Anyways, it's wishing the best of luck for you, Joe Judge, going forward.
I would be throwing up if I was Joe Judge. I would be throwing up.
He probably is with all that beer he has at his house.
Oh boy, dum-cha. That was a good transition to something different. I want to read a quote about how he connects with players, because that's part of being a coach, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Now, kind of a good conversation of maybe does he connect with his players too much, and I want to get your input on that since you've been a football fan longer than I have because you're older. You're an old man. You're in your 30s. Even
30. I can't. Being 30 isn't in your 30s, I don't think.
Nah, you're in your 30s. I'm in my 20s, early 20s. Even as he struggled through some of his early experience as a coordinator, Daboll always made a point to forge strong relationships with his players. When Derek Anderson was with the Browns, he was going through a messy divorce that was taking its toll. He was there for me, Anderson said. I was dealing with a ton of shit that year that I was with him. And he was always great about it. Come into his office, sit down. Hey, dude, how are you? Doing okay? During the spring, when everything was a mess, he was like, dude, just take two or three days to yourself. Come back on Monday. And then also, when Calvin Ridley was with Alabama in 2017, this is the part where it could get too personal, but also college is different than the pros. Calvin Ridley, he would go over his house, they would talk football, they would cook some steaks together, and Calvin Ridley was like his go-to coach and his go-to guy on that team where it's like, I feel comfortable that I can go to you. And Josh Allen, I think Daboll sees like Josh Allen as like a son, and the way that they've communicated, Josh Allen has recently said after the Bills were eliminated from the playoffs how much he really loves Brian Daboll. So he seems to have very good connections with players, seems to connect with them well, and it seems like guys do want to play for him. And I do think that matters even in a league where guys are getting millions of dollars. But is it a concern at all in the back of your brain that does Daboll get too close to his players? Can he also be the disciplinarian when he needs to? Or is that a wait and see?
I think that's a way. He doesn't give off like the vibes where he can't do that type of thing, Okay. Maybe that's because he's bald and has a beard. But he's worked under Belichick and Saban too, so he's. I'm sure he's not foreign to that concept, Yeah. Like he's not going to be Matt Patricia, but he's also not going to be Ben McAdoo, where it's, or even Pat Shurmur, where Pat Shurmur kind of didn't do that at all because he knew his job was on the line, and if losing the players would. Losing like 3 or 4 players from his side would have definitely canned him, and he got canned anyways.
Yeah.
So that, but at the end of the day, it is a wait and see. Like it's a wait and see with Brian Daboll in general. Like head coach is different than offensive coordinator. So, but I just like the way he's willing to adjust and change things. Like even going from the booth to on the field, like you mentioned with Josh Allen. Like wanting to be on the field with Josh Allen, like you said, and then like, hey, it's better for you to go up on the booth. You're not as tied in, and I think that's why Ken Dorsey is so huge, because Ken Dorsey probably will be in the booth, and Brian Daboll can handle that stuff on the sideline. Because obviously he'll have to be on the sideline. So should we talk about Ken Dorsey?
Yeah, I want to read like 1 or 2 quotes about him being on the field versus in the booth, and how that's another reflection on how he grows and how he delegates to other people. Earlier in his career, it was difficult for Daboll to delegate and loosen his grip on any aspect of the offense, and that only became more challenging during his early days working with Josh Allen. Josh is kind of his baby. Like, he wanted to be able to mentor Josh on the field, a former player said. Instead of letting him be up in the booth, he dissected the offense during those walkthroughs. He couldn't sit back and just watch his creation. It's like he's watching his baby, his creation, his offense, play itself out. Now, when the Bills hired quarterbacks coach Ken Dorsey in 2019, Daboll was finally able to relinquish his control and move to the booth, and Buffalo's offense reaped the rewards. And then this is something that Daboll said: if I were down there now, I'd be fine either way. I just think that's part of the growth process. I'd say the thing that I've been trying to improve on is listening, the process, communication, delegate more, because the confidence that I have in the guys that I work with, some humility, some resiliency, just teaching people how to deal when things aren't going great. It's a freeing feeling when you have confidence. So, Bobby, that's huge. I think that's huge, especially as you move to head coach, where you're not going to be able to kind of control everything. You're going to have influence over everything. I kind of like, number one, that a guy does have a background of wanting to control things, because I don't want a head coach that's going to have just laissez-faire on the defense. Like, hey, defense coordinator, I'm an offensive coach. You just do whatever you want. Hopefully he can be involved in the defense, but also having trust in the people that you hire that they can do their jobs.
Which is hard, you know?
Yes.
Like, coming from a control freak, it is very hard. It is, like, that's a hard thing to do. And, you know, we're on social media and people in the media, like, people don't realize how involved these head coaches are. You know, and you know, when they're like, the fourth down debate comes up every time. Like, it's like, you don't realize how those coaches like think about that stuff. It's like, you know, it's like a disrespect to them, where it's like, I've been doing this my whole life, and some nerd's gonna tell me that, like Gettleman, you know, Gettleman for an example. Like, it's hard for those guys. So the fact that he's been able to grow and mature as just a human being, you know, it shows me a lot about him. And like, letting Ken Dorsey call it. Can we just assume Ken Dorsey's the offensive coordinator? Can I get excited about that?
Yeah, I think that's safe. And, you know, we were talking in our head coach episode that Daboll is going to be the one calling the plays. So why does Dorsey calling the plays excite you?
So before we get into that unconfirmed thought that Ken Dorsey will be the offensive coordinator, this episode was brought to you by Anthony Stigliano. That's a fake name, right?
No, definitely not.
Nick Rodriguez, who's part of the World Beater tier. How about that?
Wow.
Nicholas Massimo de Pasquales. I don't know where he's from. I can't open the message because I don't have the envelope. Nick Di Polito. He's Polito. Matt Oates. Bart Oates' son, another person on the beach. By the way, I'm with Jake Garcia, who was a new patron on the last episode. I forgot that's the name of a Miami QB. University of Miami is Jake Garcia. Colin Hoy. That means Oi. H-O. Does that mean today?
Oi.
Espanol. Oi? Yeah. Never mind. And then Tyrese Gilmore, who is actually Stephen Gilmore's brother, who's from the Bills, so he came along with them. Justin, who are these people?
All these wonderful people. They're sponsoring today's show. They went to patreon.com/talkinggiants. $2 a month plus some other tiers. Get to watch shows live. Get to hang out with us. Get to chat with us. Plus, Bobby will send you some stickers and magnets in the mail. And you get access to some monthly shirt raffles. On a real note, I think we're 10 patrons away from 400. Which, Bobby, I think we started this in August of what year? Did we start it in 2020 or 2021?
2020.
We started this in August in 2020. To think that there's 400 people that signed up and want to give us anything is kind of wild. And I am extremely, extremely thankful. So let's get up to 400 and let's celebrate. Patreon.com/talkinggiants. Thank you so much to my favorite people in the world. Thank you.
So we'll tread a little lightly with Ken Dorsey because at the time of this recording, it's not confirmed, and we can, when it is confirmed, we'll dive in a little more. But Ken Dorsey, dude, I mean, one great Miami quarterback, so that's a way to my heart.
That's where it comes from, yeah.
But this was my target, Justin, when I thought Jason Garrett would be fired after the 2020 season because we had the second worst offense, and anyone with a fucking brain would have fired Jason Garrett. Ken Dorsey was my target. You know, and just the way he's built, like he was he started actually as a scout with the Panthers. So Joe Shane, some experience.
What year?
2011 and 12. So he was there with Joe Shane, right?
No, he missed Joe.
Oh
Shane.
No, Joe Shane left in 07. But with Brandon Beane. So there's that. Then he became the Panthers QB coach. He was the Panthers QB coach for Cam Newton's MVP year, and the more we look at Cam Newton, like that 4-year stretch was the best time of his career.
Yeah.
Then he went to FIU, worked there for a year, and then became the Bills' QB coach and then passing game coordinator for the last 3 seasons. And that's when Josh Allen has developed. Like Ken Dorsey deserves a lot of the Josh Allen development credit too. Obviously Josh Allen himself deserves it the most. But like that was like a minor worry in the back of my head. Was like, I wonder if Ken Dorsey has like a lot to do with the Josh Allen development than Brian Daboll. And it's reported that like, hey, if Ken Dorsey will be the one calling plays, which I think is really lets Brian Daboll be a head coach, and as a first-year head coach, managing calling plays, and being a first-time head coach, it's a lot. So if he has the trust in a guy like Ken Dorsey to do that, that's beautiful. And say Ken Dorsey balls and gets a head coach, well, maybe Daboll can call the plays himself, or there's another QB coach who's in here that they can trust to call up. So it sets them up for long-term success, plus the fact that I just really like Ken Dorsey as a coaching candidate.
Kind of a cool combo, thinking of it now. If they want to stick with this, hey, OC is in the booth type of deal, and one of these guys can be down there working with the QB, Daboll can be talking with that QB on the sideline a little bit, probably not sitting with them because
there's value in the booth, and now
there is value in the booth. Yeah, so you can have if Daboll wants to be that guy, like I kind of mentioned in the article, how he was reluctant to give up that control in 2018, how he wants to be with Josh Allen. He wants to be on the sideline with the quarterback, talking about the things that they talked about in the meeting room a couple days before, right? He can have that as a head coach, and then Ken Dorsey can be up in the booth, kind of just sticking to the blueprint, sticking to the plan, seeing things from that, wide all-22 perspective and seeing the game better. And then obviously whatever QB coach, Brian Daboll brings in, you can also delegate, things to him too. So that kind of does, hey, makes me excited if they want to stick to that similar system that they had in Buffalo of a guy in the booth, but also Brian Daboll can resume that guy on the sidelines, I'm talking to people position that he liked in Buffalo before he went up to the booth.
And it seems like he probably saw that from Sean McDermott, who let Leslie Frazier call plays on defense. And like this must be a priority to get Ken Dorsey to not be the Bills offense coordinator for Josh Allen. Like this had to be like Brian Daboll, like, hey man, you guys have to pay this son of a gun. Like for me to come, this guy needs to come with me, and he has to. Like you guys gotta shell it out, because he's obviously not going to leave Josh Allen and them for nothing. So at least we know they're going to have a good relationship wise. Like, and that's the other thing. We talked about it on the Joe Shane press. We're talking about like relationships in the building. I know we're becoming the Bills of New Jersey, the New Jersey version of the Buffalo Bills, but it's like Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, and Ken Dorsey. Like we got a front office and a head coaching staff that are totally on the same page, like we mentioned in the beginning of the episode.
Bam.
Do you want to talk? What else do you have that you want to hit on?
I mean, there's RPO stuff when he was with Tua in 2017, Tua and Jalen Hurts in 2017 with Alabama. Was it just Tua? 2017? Yeah, it was Tua and
he was there the Hurts year, and then when they benched Hurts for Tua.
Yeah. Okay.
For that national championship.
So I mean, and then post 2017, you saw Tua Tagovailoa become the best quarterback in the country at running those RPOs. And then as the years have kind of gone on, the more that Buffalo started to pass, the more that they mixed up their personnel grouping frequencies, the more they kind of used. I also didn't mention this when talking about scheme. They used like 4 wide receiver sets, and that's something that Zach Taylor in Cincinnati does well, is utilizing the spread with somewhat of a lackluster offensive line. But when you utilize the spread, the idea is there's going to be less guys in the box because you don't have a tight end on the field. Maybe you're taking a running back off the field. So if you spread the field, there's going to be more secondary guys out there. So hopefully it gives you more time to throw the ball, where Josh Allen has also become a guy where he has a very high average time to throw, but his average depth of target is pretty solid too. The second highest rate of play action passes in 2020, and then the first in 2021.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were first in 2021.
So when the offense has started to evolve and when he's really kind of changed things, then Josh Allen has taken a step up. They utilize play action more, which I think no matter what, you should be utilizing play action. That doesn't necessarily predicate on having really good quarterback play. And that excites me. And utilizing RPOs the more time has gone on too. And that kind of started with his time in 2017 with the University of Alabama.
there's there's a lot to be excited about, and I am very excited for that. So I do want to talk very shortly about the defensive coordinator spot. Let me check to see if there's some news in there. By the way, at our Patreon chat, we got Danny Behan and Mr. Chicken. Like they're reminiscing on the good times. Remember Danny Behan remind us of DraftKings ads. 12 people, 12 people max in the chat. Back in the day with those Patreon chat, we used to tell people spill the beans on everything. Now we have to be a little more tame, but we still spill the beans on some things. But we had hour chalk talks, chalk sessions with the Patreon. So let's see if we missed any news. Let's see. But at the same time, Justin, this guy worked under Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. There's no way this can fail.
Ha 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 ha.
What do you think about Wink? What do you think about Wink Martindale being the defensive coordinator?
I got it. You know what? I gotta stop being so the Ravens defense faced adversity for one of the first times this year and they didn't do well, whereas Patrick Graham has faced adversity, 2020 and 2021, and he's kept the defense afloat. I got to stop being like that. There's a reason why Wink Martindale has been a head coaching candidate. There's a reason why he's been in Baltimore for a long time, and there's a reason why they've had success year in and year out, despite them letting pass rushers walk, and they prioritize certain positions. So, right now, if you were to put a gun to my head, I would say
I wish you could put a gun to your head.
I know, right? I know you wish you were able to put a gun to my head.
Early Patreon days, we said we had our roots are our gun violence podcast. People forget that.
This is true. No, I don't think people forget that. At least not with you. Patrick Graham would be my preference for defense coordinator right now. That could be a bad take. It could be a really bad take, but I just really like Patrick Graham's ability to adjust, and I'm still sitting back and waiting for Patrick Graham to get a good edge rusher. Yes, Azeez Ojulari is going to grow, and hopefully he improves, but I'm waiting for that good edge rusher that he is desperately kind of seeking for so he can run the defense that he wants to run, because this year he had to adjust, and he did a good job at adjusting. And that's where my brain is at right now.
I would be happy with Wink, but I want Patrick Graham to be the defensive coordinator unless there's a way they can lure Vic Fangio to the job.
But he's
Patrick
probably going to get
fits everything philosophically. He's a perfect match for what the Bills have done and Joe Shane has done with the Bills. The only difference is 4-3 versus 3-4.
But that doesn't really matter.
And that's the least of your worries. Most stuff is based out of nickel. They're a philosophical match. They've got a guy in the locker room. So again, if they can get Wink, I'm not mad at that. But I definitely want Patrick Graham more than Wink. But I actually think if we're sitting here talking Wink Martindale versus Patrick Graham as our defensive coordinator right now, that's a good spot for the Giants. He was the guy who I wanted a head coach in 2020. Now I go back and I look at that as a bad take, and I wouldn't ever want Wink as my head coach. But if I'm saying that I would rather not get Wink as my defensive coordinator, that's a good spot to be in. And I think Wink is, he's worked in that Ravens system, but I also think Wink is a smart guy, and he's similar to Brian Daboll, who's learned from some of his past mistakes. Where hey, he may not be married to the blitz 42% of the time, type of defense.
Yeah. We have Brian Daboll as head coach, and we're discussing, who do we have as defense coordinator? Patrick Graham or Wink Martindale versus Brian Flores is our head coach, and we're like, who even is available for offensive coordinator?
Who would want to work with Brian Flores as offensive coordinator?
Yeah. Can I say something now that we hired Brian Daboll? And I don't care what you think if you're listening to this. I don't care what you think about this statement. I am so happy he is not the head coach. Very happy.
I feel that's for me, I'm very happy that Brian Daboll is more so than Brian Flores, but I wouldn't have been mad at Brian Flores. He's got enough positives, and I think a lot of his negatives, it comes with being a head coach, being a guy who's been a head coach before. Whereas when you're a coordinator, a lot of your flaws are aren't out in the open type thing. Where Joe Judge's flaws out there and open when we got him. Now I know he called special teams and not offense or defense. So I think he was a little victim to that, but his flaws were pretty pretty big. But at the end of the day, I wanted Brian Daboll. I wish they would have
Yep.
interviewed Kevin O'Connell and Mike McDaniel, but I'm very happy they got Brian Daboll.
And some of the things that Joe Schoen just said about head coaches being able to interpret data, whether it's player performance data about training and that side of things, or being able to use and dissect data when it comes to fourth down decisions on when to go for it and when to punt. That is those words that he used in his introductory press conference. That's not me just presuming that Joe Schoen would want a head coach to use that. He said that, head coaches would have to be able to dissect that data. And then also, again, head coach, GM, offensive coordinator, all being on the same page and all sharing the same vision. Did you see that report today that came out about Daboll suggesting that he would be open to letting GM and letting other people select his offensive coordinator for him? I'm sorry, that Flores would be open.
Yeah, that was like, okay, so we're going to get Jason Garrett again. Like, that was like, are you kidding me? And also, don't be a pussy, Brian Flores, like Mr. Toughass. Go get your guy. Don't be like, I'll let you get, like, talk about.
If you don't believe in your ability to coach an offense and be a head coach, then go back to being a defense coordinator.
For real. Chances Flores and Judge are back with Patriots.
I think Brian Flores is going to get a head coaching job, and I think he can be a good head coach. I just don't think it's right for the Giants.
It wasn't right for the Giants.
It's just not. The Giants need so much offensive help, and they're looking for a franchise quarterback. The Giants are looking for a franchise quarterback. If Brian Flores wants to go to a team with a franchise quarterback or with somewhat of a more stable, why not the Saints? No, I mean, Saints need help on offense too, but
I think that'd be a good fit.
I feel like that would be a sound kind of maybe fit for them. Somewhat of an already good roster, and just have Brian Flores come in who's young and guy that players can believe in a team that with crappy quarterbacks still somehow stayed afloat this season. So just don't think he's right for the Giants.
All right, Justin, is that all we got? We're getting ready to go down to Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah.
Excited for that. So we have a ton of content coming out next week. So get on. I think we're gonna have Michael Coe on the next episode, who former Super Bowl champion with the New York Giants, and is they're one of the top guys at the Senior Bowl. So not a guarantee, but I think that's at least it's planned to happen. Hopefully he doesn't bail out on us. If he does, actually, you know what? Tweet at Michael Coe. Excited to hear your interview with Talking Giants next week at the Senior Bowl. So we do appreciate you guys.
Wait.
Go ahead.
That'll be an in-person interview?
I'm not sure. But it can be.
I think it can be. We got enough microphones.
I mean, you said to wait till Monday, so
that would be our first.
I'll leave it up to him. Do you want to do it through Zoom, or do you want us to meet up with you? We have the equipment to do it mobilely.
That would be our first in-person interview, ever.
Yeah, it would. So how about that?
That's fun. All
right. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys next week down in Alabama. Follow along with the journey. Follow along with the offseason. And leave a review. I missed the freaking Orlando Magic game for this damn episode. I'm literally recording on a desk that's a quarter of the size of mine, and I have to hunch over to talk into the microphone. So leave a freaking review. I'm going to get real pissed off. The gun violence roots are going to start growing branches, if you know what I mean, if you don't leave a 5-star rating review. So we appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week. See you in Alabama. Until then, let's go Brian Daboll, and let's go Big Blue.